So here we have a bunch of more theorems. The first one is congruent supplements theorem. It's that angles supplement to the same angle, right? And remember, supplement is 180 degrees. To the same angle, or congruent angles are congruent. So if you have an angle that's supplement to 180, and you have another angle that's supplement to 180, then those two angles are congruent. Okay. So congruent complements theorem. Complements is 90. So it's the same idea. It's that angles complement the same angle, or congruent angles are congruent. Okay. So we have the verticals angles theorems. If two angles are vertical angles, then they're congruent, right? We talked about that in a previous chapter. And we have perpendicular lines intersect to form right angles. Okay. This doesn't really have a name, so you have to write this out. And the way that you would write this out as a reason, you would say perpendicular lines form right angles, like that. Right? So the way you can abbreviate it. All right angles are congruent, right? So of course that's kind of obvious. You could say all right angles congruent. And then here perpendicular lines form congruent adjacent angles. We could say perpendicular lines form congruent adjacent angles, like so. And then we have, if two angles are congruent and supplementary, then each angle is a right angle. So if they're both congruent and supplementary, then each angle is a right angle. And then lastly, we have, if two congruent angles form a linear pair, then they are right angles. Two congruent angles form a linear pair, then both of the angles are 90 degrees. Right? Two congruent angles. Okay, so let's go ahead and try using some of these reasons, these theorems, in our two-column proofs. And here we have an example. We have angle ABC, and angle CBD are complementary. That means 90 degrees. Right? And DBE and CBD form a right angle. So we need to prove that this small angle is congruent with this small angle here. And so we got to start with our given. So we're going to say angle ABC and angle CBD are comp. And then I'm going to say angle DBE and angle CBD form a right angle. And my reason for this is going to be given. And for the second one, it's going to be that DBE and CBD are complementary. So angle DBE and angle CBD are complementary. And the reason why we're able to say that is right over here, right? If two angles form a right angle, then the angles are complementary, right? So complementary angles theorem. So I'm going to say complementary angles theorem. And then lastly, we're going to say that angle ABC is congruent with angle DBE. And the reason for that is because angles complement to the same angle, or to congruent angles are congruent. Right? So we have this angle 1 is congruent with CBD, and angle 2 is congruent with CBD as well. So since they're both complement to the same angle, right? They both complement to the same angle. Here in statement 1, we have the angle 1 is complement with CBD. And then in statement 2, we have DBE, angle 2 is complement with CBD. So they're both complement to the same angle as shown in the statements. So then we can apply the congruent complements theorem. which says that angles complement to the same angle are congruent. Okay, so we can say angles comp to the same angle are congruent. Alright, and so that's just one example of using these theorems to construct our two-column proofs. And then we have some examples down here where you can exercise those theorems.